If I was trying to get a job in consulting in 2025, here's exactly what I would do. Hi, my name is Ziad. I previously received offers from multiple consulting firms like BCG and Bain. And for the last couple of years, I've been helping people break into the consulting industry, so I know a thing or two about how to get a job in consulting. So in this video, I want to put myself in your shoes. If I was going through the consulting recruiting process again from the beginning, here's exactly what I would do and here's exactly how I would approach it. More specifically, I'm going to cover number one, how you could actually get the interview, and then number two, how you can ace the interview and finally receive the offer. Okay, so let's get started with number one, how to actually land the interview. So let me give you a quick statistic. Less than 4% of applicants who apply to McKinsey, BCG, or Bain actually get invited to the first round interview. So most people don't even get the opportunity to speak to any of the members of the team to show their skills or show their abilities, which is why I think front loading a lot of the work up front for you to showcase that you're a strong candidate is going to be super important. Most generic advice out there will tell you make sure that you have a very strong resume, make sure that you have a very strong cover letter. And while I do think that having a strong resume and a strong cover letter will be extremely important, and I've made videos about those linked here, I still think that perfecting those two elements alone is just purely not enough. There's only so much you can do to improve your resume and improve your cover letter, and you need to find different ways to be able to stand out. And in my view, the best way to go ahead and do that is to go ahead and get a referral. Put yourself in the shoes of a recruiter. If there are 1,000 resumes in front of you, but then there are 10 resumes that have like a highlighted name on it because they have spoken to one of the partners or one of the managers or one of the different consultants, would you prioritize some of those resumes, especially if all the other ones look exactly the same? Remember the 4% statistic that I shared earlier? People who have a referral have close to a 20% chance of going from the application to the interview stage. So in other words, you have a 5 times higher chance of getting the interview if you have a referral. So for me, if I was going through the application, the first thing that I would do and the first thing that I would prioritize is actually getting a referral. So now the question becomes, how would I actually go about getting a referral? There are 3 ways in which you can go about this. Number 1, networking events. There are certain types of student organizations or professional organizations for people who are working full-time that are organizing events about how to break into consulting. So while going to some of these events, you will meet actual consultants who are working at the companies you're interested in, and that's your chance to give them your resume, give them your cover letter, and potentially even ask for a referral. In full transparency, this was not the approach that I took in the past, but this is something that I would definitely consider in 2025. Back when I was recruiting, it was during COVID times, so there was not a lot of in-person networking events, but now that a lot of the in-person network events are happening again, I would prioritize trying to get into one of those. Method number 2 is personal connections and friends. Maybe you know people who already work at McKinsey, BCG, Bain, Oliver Wyman, any of the other top consulting firms, so you can reach out to any of them and ask if they would be willing to submit a referral. Personally, I went to a non-target school, which was Northeastern University, so there were not a lot of people that I could reach out to, and in 2025, I would probably leverage different parts of my network rather than the consulting one that I had from Northeastern University. And then option number 3 is just good old LinkedIn. Now, between these 3, my personal recommendation is to go ahead and use LinkedIn. The reason behind that is because not everybody has access to the networking events, or not everybody knows people who have connections. So I think the one that you have the most amount of control over, the one that you can scale to a larger audience and you can talk to a lot of people, and honestly, the one that I've seen a lot of people have a lot of success with is LinkedIn. So personally, I would be spending a lot of time on LinkedIn sending out some of these messages. So now I know what you're thinking. You're probably wondering, what is the exact message that I would send on LinkedIn, especially if it's someone who I don't know. Luckily, I have that prepared for you, and I told you that this is going to be a video with actionable tips. So here's the exact message that I would send if I was trying to break into consulting in 2025. Dear Name, by way of introduction, my name is Ziad, and I've been following your work at company name with great admiration. I noticed that we both have X commonality, which makes me even more excited to connect. I'm currently exploring opportunities within consulting, particularly with BCG, McKinsey, and Bain. And I'd love to connect to better understand the culture, values, and the kind of impact that your team is driving. I know that you're super busy, but if you're open, I'd love to hop on a quick call to hear more about your experiences. If, after our conversation, you feel that I might be a strong candidate, I'd be thrilled to explore the possibility of a referral. However, even if it's not the case, I'd still highly value the opportunity to learn from you and gain insights into the consulting world. Looking forward to connecting, and I appreciate your time. Best regards, Ziad. Notice 2 things about the script. Number 1 is I made sure that I mentioned something that we have in common. This increases the chance that this person will actually respond to you. And then number two, I was very upfront about the referral. A lot of people don't talk about the referral upfront, and then they hop on the call, and then the call ends, and then they don't get a referral out of it. The way that I did so in the script does not come across as pushy, but it still makes it very transparent that I would like to get a referral outside of the conversation. Now, at this point, in full reality, the referral is a numbers game. I would not reach out to just 10 people, not hear back from them, and then think that, oh, I was not able to get a referral. I honestly would reach out to over 100 different people and try to secure 2 to 3 different referrals from different companies. Just because you have a referral does not guarantee necessarily that you're going to get the interview. While it does increase your chances tremendously, you do want to cast a wide net and apply to a lot of different companies, get a lot of different referrals from the different firms. Back in the day when I was going through the consulting recruiting, I did have 3 referrals at McKinsey, BCG, and Bain, and ultimately I ended up getting interviews at BCG and Bain, but I never got the interview at McKinsey. Okay, so that wraps up part number 1, and that is how to actually get the interview. And now let's talk about part number 2, and that is what I would do when I actually get the interview. Okay, so let's say I applied, and now I open up this beautiful letter that says, congratulations, you've been offered a first round interview, and now you're going to talk to the senior associate at X company. And the interview is going to be maybe in 2 to 3 weeks. Here's exactly what I would do in the 2 to 3 week period in order to prepare for the case interview. And by the way, just as a quick disclaimer, it is best to prepare for the case interview in a much longer period of time. However, I do understand that a lot of people's circumstances will not allow for that. So if I only had a short period of time, here's exactly what I would do. So if I was trying to expedite the prep, what I would follow is the familiarize, study, practice triangle. So familiarize, study, practice. So familiarize. The first thing I would do is I would familiarize myself with the different types of consulting cases and the different types of case interviews. And I would focus on one very specific type first, finish the loop with the triangle, and then continue on to the next. So let's say I want to start with the profitability case. The first thing I would do is I would familiarize myself with what a profitability case sounds like or looks like. The way I would do that is I would go online and I would search for some of the free case books that are available. So Wharton is a very popular one. University of Virginia Darden is a very popular one. NYU has a very good case book as well. So I would look at those online case books and I would focus specifically on the profitability one. And my goal here is not to become a master of the profitability case. Literally all I want to do is make sure that I can understand and know when a case is a profitability case and when a case is not a profitability case. This is a very critical and important step because by familiarizing yourself with the different types of cases, now you can move on to step number 2, and that is studying the different types of frameworks. Once you know which specific case you're being asked, now you have to set up a framework, and by setting up the framework, you're essentially setting up the way in which you're going to be answering that question. So back to the profitability framework example, the profitability framework breaks down to 2 things. Number 1, you have revenue, and then number 2, you have costs. And then you have different subsections within each of those, and that creates the full profitability framework. Each type of case has its own framework, and honestly, my advice here is to just keep it very simple. A lot of people will tell you don't use generic frameworks or frameworks don't work. I will say this, in 80% of the cases, you're better off using some form of framework that already exists out there and instead standing out in your ability to do the analysis and the communication rather than trying to stand out by figuring out a framework that most people are not using or not doing. I think the mistake that most people do is that they'll put a wrong framework to the type of case. So let's say, for example, I was asked to solve a profitability case and instead I went in and I submitted a 3 C's framework. That would be a bad use of the 3 C's framework because it did not fit the case. But if I'm clearly asked a profitability question, it is okay to answer with the profitability framework. My most popular video on YouTube is actually all about frameworks, so I left it in the description below and you can see it right here. I talk about the 5 different types of frameworks that I use when I go through the consulting case interview, and I also give you a couple tips to stand out in case you are asked a question that is not necessarily related to the different types of frameworks that are available out there. Anyways, back to the triangle. Now that you familiarize yourself with the content, now that you studied a lot of the different frameworks, now it's the most important part, and that is to practice. If I was going through the process again, I would probably anchor towards 20 to 30 types of cases. That would be 5 cases of the 5 different types, and then maybe 5 different ones in different categories. So I would do 5 profitability cases, I would do 5 market entry cases, I would do 5 market sizing cases, I would do 5 M&A cases, and then I would do 5 like broad general public sector cases. Now the actual resource that I would use for prepping to familiarize myself, study, and practice would be something like Case Coach. I'm not sponsored by Case Coach and I'm not affiliated with them in any way, shape, or form, but it is a resource that I used and I would use this again in 2025 because I think they have some of the best video courses, they have some of the best content out there, it's made by pro consultants, and it just has a lot of information. So if you're completely lost, you don't know where to get started, or even if you are a pro and you know what you're doing and you just want to get some additional reps in there, I think Case Coach is a fantastic, fantastic resource. If you stuck around for this long, let me give you a quick bonus tip. After the interview, it is very important that you send a thank you email, but a lot of people don't know how to send a very strong thank you email. And personally, from my time going through Bain, I actually used the thank you email as an opportunity to correct myself after I did very poorly in one of the cases. I'll tell you this, you don't have to be perfect in all of the case interviews. I did make a lot of mistakes in my final round at Bain, but I was still lucky enough to get the offer. And I think part of the reason why I still got the offer, even though I didn't do very well in the interview, was because I used a very good template for the thank you email. More specifically, I did two things that stood out. The first thing is I acknowledged the fact that I did not do very well in the case. I actually wrote a sentence in the thank you email that said, word for word, while I recognize that my performance on the market sizing was not very strong, I assure you that this is not a demonstration of my analytical capabilities. From there, I continued on and I reflected about some of my other analytical capacities and capabilities that could show them that I would still be a strong candidate if they were to hire me. But the second thing that I did that stood out that they liked a lot was I actually found an article about the exact case that we spoke about. We were talking about the market size of a specific product in the United States, and I actually ended up doing a lot of research and I found an article that spoke about how this market is now a very trending market in the US. A lot of companies are trying to enter this market, and I sent that exact article in the thank you email. So in short, it is important to send the thank you email, but also use the thank you email as an opportunity to reflect on how you've done on the case interview, whether you've done well or not so well. So anyways, I hope that you found this video helpful. I would love to hear from you, so drop in the comments things that you would like for me to talk about next. I would love to help you in your consulting journey, so feel free to also book some time with me or to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I love connecting with all of you. This is all I have for today, so I'll catch you in the next one.